Where was Tarshish? This is one that I am probably in a minority on because almost everyone I read disagrees with me. And it's a shame that they're all wrong. It's a laugh, people. Laugh. I'm not that cocky. Okay. But I have strong reasons to think otherwise. So traditionally, when you read commentaries and been taught, people either say that Tarshish is located in Spain or Britain. Those have been the two most popular ideas for years. Most of us know Tarshish from one story, Jonah. He's trying to get away. I want to get as far away from here as possible. Where can we go? Tarshish. And so he hops in a boat in Joppa and heads to Tarshish. But that's the only place in the Bible that would probably lead us to think that it might be Spain or Britain. Here's what the Bible has to say about Tarshish and its location. So in 1 Kings 9, during the reign of King Solomon, speaking about all of his glory, it says, King Solomon built a fleet of ships at Ezion Geber, which is near Elat, on the shores of the Red Sea, in the land of Edom. And then Hiram, the king of Tyre, Hiram sent his servants with the fleet, seamen who knew the sea, to work with the servants of Solomon. They went to Ophir, and they acquired 420 talents of gold. From there, they brought it to the king. And then it also mentions, actually, I'll hold off right there. I think in Kings, because there's 1 Kings 9 parallels First Chronicles, 2 Chronicles 8, I think is how it goes. And then 1 Kings 10 is 2 Chronicles, yeah. So, where did King Solomon build his fleet? In Elat. Here I am without my map. I'll go back. I got a map. Look at that. I didn't even intend this. It's not on my map. Phooey. Okay. If you're familiar, if you follow Israel today all the way south, just south of where this map goes, it is the very tip of the Red Sea called the Gulf of Aqaba. The Red Sea splits at the very end. In between is what we call the Sinai Peninsula, though I think Sinai was over here for you guys. But we have the Suez Gulf by Egypt, and we have the Gulf of Aqaba in between modern-day Saudi Arabia and Egypt with Jordan and Israel at the tippy top. This is where King Solomon built his fleet. We also see mention in 2 Chronicles 20 that Jehoshaphat of Judah allied himself with Ahaziah of Israel, and they wanted to build ships to go to Tarshish, and they built them at Ezion Geber. Same place. Ezion Geber is the last place the Israelites stopped before they got into the wilderness of sin in the book of Exodus as they were going to Sinai. And it's right there by modern-day Elat at the tip of the Red Sea. What were they doing there? Oh, actually, and it says, right, but Eleazar, the son of Dodo, prophesied, because you've allied with Ahaziah, the Lord's going to destroy your works. So the ships were wrecked and they didn't get to go to Tarshish. Only 2 times in Israel's history did they ever try and build a navy to go to Tarshish. And both times they put it in the Red Sea. In 2 Chronicles 9:21, it says, for the king's ships, this is Solomon's ships, went to Tarshish with the servants of Hiram once every 3 years. It was a long journey. The merchant ships came bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. The King James Bible says peacocks. Every single Bible except the stinking New King James that I love and teach out of, which says monkeys, which is a horrible translation. But New King James does not always get it right. But every other Bible translation, actually I think it's the NIV, says something else. Might say monkeys or baboons or something. But whether you read the Old King James, the ESV, the NLT, the NASB, the CSB, they all say peacocks. And that's really the term we're looking for there, is peacocks. Now, they're going to Tarshish. What do they get from Tarshish? First off, gold and silver, that's kind of common everywhere, right? That was a big trading thing. But they brought back ivory. Where do we get ivory? Elephants. Probably not Eskimo ivory from walruses. I don't think they were going that far, right? But that's ivory too. But elephants. There's only 2 kinds of elephants, right? There is African and Indian elephants. We don't know of any Spanish elephants. I don't know of any British elephants. So I don't know what going to Spain or England would do to get them ivory. Next, apes. Now, interestingly, apes, again, Africa and southern Asia is where we find apes. One of my favorite, Gesenius wrote the old original Hebrew lexicon. He was a genius at translating the Hebrew language. And you'll note that he even mentions this Hebrew word for apes is one they stole, a word of Indian origin. So the word we actually have here in the Hebrew actually comes from an Indian, like Southeast, India. It's an Indian word. So we have elephants found in Africa or India. We have apes, which they're even using an Indian word. And last but not least, my friend, is the peacock. Did you know that the peacock that we all know and love is only found native in one country? India. I only throw these things out here because I get, that one guy, Jonah. I remember him now. Jonah was trying to get away, and we'll get to Jonah in a second, but the 2 times Israel wanted to build ships to go to Tarshish, they were leaving from the Gulf of Aqaba, which would take them right out around Saudi Arabia and right on over to India. In Esther 1:14, there's a list of guys' names. One of the guys' names is Tarshish. Now, what's fascinating about that is she was married to the king of Persia. Whoop, did we get it? We got it. And when you look at the Achaemenid Empire, the Persian Empire, their empire reached all the way down to the Indus River and right down to India. So they actually had control all the way down to India at that time. So having someone with a name, Tarshish, hints that there could have been something from that area named Tarshish. And last but not least, so what about Jonah? See, Jonah, it says, he arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He went down to Jaffa, which is on the Mediterranean Sea. And he found a ship going to Tarshish, and he paid a fare, and he went there to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. He wanted to get far away. Well, here's the issue we run into. During the time of Jonah, right around 700 BC, Jeroboam II would have been reigning in Israel. And at that point, the Assyrians, of course, because he was supposed to go to the Assyrians in Nineveh, were enemies of Israel, enemies of Tyre, enemies of all these people. And at this point, Israel was no longer controlling the Gulf of Aqaba. And so they didn't have a way to go there, and Israel wasn't sending things there, but Tyre was probably still wanting that money. You see, Tyre was known for sailing everywhere. And it is actually likely that when they were cut off from working with Israel, because Hiram sent his sailors to team up with Solomon's boats down in Israel's territory. But if they can't do that, it seems like going to Tarshish was so monetarily worthwhile that they would sail out the Mediterranean, down the coast of Africa, all the way around to get there. And that might sound crazy, but once upon a time, Europe used to trade with Asia and China. But when the Silk Route became too dangerous to trade over land, and it was a very long boat ride, but they would do it. They sent people with boats around the tip of Africa until a guy by the name of Columbus said, what if we went around the globe and we just sailed to the Far East that way? This is actually kind of a cool recreation of the map that Columbus was kind of working with. This idea of like, there we are, there's Japan, and we just sail like that and we'll get there. But the whole point was that it was worth getting to the Far East. And so if Tyre was the naval power that we know them to be, it would have been worth the money to send people, even if it took years to get there and come back, it was worth sending the ships. So likely, Jonah hopped on a ship that was going on a very, very long and far away from God journey, exactly what he wanted. Last but not least, a Greek historian by the name of Strabo. This is probably one of the oldest maps you will ever see. And you'll note, we're talking, I want to say this is like either 1st century AD or BC, right around the time of Christ. But you'll notice, you've got the Mediterranean Sea. It's funky looking, I know. But they've got the whole Arabian Peninsula, and they've got India, the Indus River, and all that over there too. India was always a known player in the game. And so the idea that something was over in India is not too hard to believe. So I'm a strong believer that Tarshish is likely India. What's the downside to that belief? Some people do think that because of Ezekiel 38 and 9, there's the mention of the young lions of Tarshish. If Tarshish is Britain or Spain, because Columbus came over, right? Then you could argue that the young lions of Britain might be America. So sadly, if Tarshish is India, we don't get that claim anymore. The young lions of Tarshish are our tech support, not us. But either way, I think it's okay. I'd rather believe what I think is more believable than the one that makes America have a place in the Bible. Tarshish is fascinating. People always ask, where was Tarshish?